Hello, welcome to the new Dystropia attempt. This is a work in progress. And This is because, as we mentioned on Twitter and Facebook, I'm going to be moving in the near future to the far side of the world, essentially, for work. So we were trying to figure out a way that we could keep doing this while we were keep working on the podcast, keep our inane ramblings going. So we figured we'll do it through Skype. I'm like, okay, so are we gonna have both the film input so you can see both of us talking? And because if we're gonna Skype it, we can record it. If we're gonna do it across PC, we have all these extra options rather than just us sitting around a microphone talking. So we were like, okay. So what if we have something entertaining going on while we're talking? Because if it's just our two faces talking, then that's going to get quite boring quite quickly. So this is the Dystropia Minecraft server.
Yep. I love watching you just moving your head around. I haven't played Minecraft in ages. I forgot how emotive the little characters are when they're just staring around the place.
Yeah.
This is the most vertical thing I've ever seen. I started literally in that waterfall over there, just tumbling to my doom.
Yeah.
That was my intro, and I was like, okay, great stuff. So
this is an amplified realm. So the land goes up to over the 200 mark.
Fantastic.
For people who know Minecraft. But part of the reason we picked this is because we wanted to have something visual going on that didn't require a lot of thinking on our part. But also we want to talk about the topic. It's related to the topic today, which we'll get to in a minute. But yeah, I mean, overall, it's kind of we figured something. Also, you may hear random noises in the background because there's construction going on near me. There you go. People working on a Sunday, just being arses.
Yep.
It's a day of rest, people.
It's the Lord's Day.
It's the Lord's Day. There might be some weird technical hiccups as we get going with this. Johnny might occasionally desync his audio because that's been happening randomly.
Yeah, we'll see what happens. Also, I'm using a mouse with the laptop here, and there's something sticky on the scroll wheel.
Oh, lovely!
But it's not there every time because obviously you turn it around.
Oh,
so my hand's resting on it. It's fine, and then sometimes I'll click and just find the sticky bit and be like, no.
We've also got we've only got my feed today, but because Johnny's using a MacBook and the MacBooks don't record correctly. So, but we will for future ones have both. And the idea being, we were thinking maybe we won't be doing Minecraft all the time. It's just something to have on in the background. If we're discussing specific films, or if we have talked about doing specials in the past, and we probably do one of those soon. We will have parts from that playing as we're talking. So you'll still have us at the top two corners, and you'll have some video footage. But then we'll also do an audio version of this. We will just output the audio and pop it up onto the SoundCloud as well, because we know people prefer some people prefer to do podcasts through audio. Some people will always have it on another on their second monitor running, so the visual element can just be something running.
Yeah.
So, and then we were thinking as well in the future that we can have other people come in while we're doing this. It could be a case of the various people if we're having guests on. Due to the new format, we might not have guests every week now, just because trying to get everybody available for it, and I'm going to be 7 hours ahead of Johnny time difference wise. So
yeah, although I am thinking about we can do some pre-recorded bits and pieces. I'm happy to get people to call in and give an opinion on whatever the topic is of the week.
Yes. So
the bye-week.
But the main thing is we'd like is your feedback on this. Was it still watchable, listenable? Could you still talk? Could you still follow it? And was it still interesting?
Yeah, we'll put this video up. Leave comments, genuinely do. I'd love to hear what people are thinking of it.
So the reason why we picked Minecraft is it's somewhat related to our topic for this week. Now, this isn't to be confused with one we did before. We're talking about world building. Now, we did one on setting, but we wanted to do one on world building where we're talking about more kind of the ongoing process of the world building, not the initial setting that you get introduced to. Because I was thinking about it, and they are two very different things.
Yeah.
So I was thinking it should be something that's more... what would you say? Has the ongoing world is developed where it's not strictly told to the characters in it or the player, or
Yeah.
it's
So
more
like,
just background detail.
so for a setting, like one of my favorite settings is the Alien universe, and I really, really like that, and it's really cool. The world building is not good, especially with the new movies,
No.
where things start to contradict themselves. Things don't make sense. Things like it is poor world building.
Yes.
But the setting is absolutely brilliant.
We're gonna have to make a tunnel or something.
Already we have to do that.
Yeah, it's nighttime is coming, and we are
Yeah.
very defenseless.
Yeah.
The Alien was actually quite a good one. And that's one of those ones that I think will cross over into all the genres except TV, because it hasn't been a TV series of it yet.
Yeah.
But there was an Alien. Obviously, there was the films. There's also a series of. I'm just going to dig a hole in the wall here. There was also a series of comic books, graphic novels done. And there was a series of games. Games are a bit hit and miss. Gotta say that about them. They were trying their best to stick to the universe, but at the same time, they were very problematic. Would be the nicest way of saying it. Now, part of that was down to gameplay just being terrible on them, and part of it was just that they weren't that good in terms of story. The first two that they did, I remember way back when, I think it would have been around 96, 97.
Yeah.
There was the Alien versus Predator. The first game came along, and they had a really nice approach to how they built the games. Because the level designers went in and they designed these full Weyland-Yutani style complexes. And they were like, "Oh, here's the living quarters, and here's the dining hall, and they made sure everything was in there, and they lit it properly. And then they went through and broke like 95% of the lighting.
So yeah.
So they're like, no, so now it feels correct because this is the way the lighting should be, but we're going to turn most of it off.
It's a weird one because generally, looking at some of the things that have really, really good world building are these kind of long running series. So in games, it's things like Mass Effect and Fallout because they've had so many iterations that they keep getting to reinforce it. I think Aliens is one that genuinely every time they do something, they seem to just do something really silly that breaks something that they previously established.
Yeah. There was a quote, just to say, like the books, the graphic novels, after the first three films, and I still like Alien 3. I mean, I know that doesn't get a lot of respect, but I like Alien 3 a lot. I actually really like the book series because the book series, they did a very interesting thing with the story, and it seemed to be that they had set out to do it in knowing that they'll never get away with this in the films.
Yeah.
And what they did was they essentially they wiped out the majority of Earth.
Oh, nice.
They went to Earth, and so there's the first book in the series is called Earthhive, and it's about how like Carter was Burke in Aliens is trying to do, where he tries to get a xenomorph back through quarantine and all the rest, and they're trying to study it. They essentially succeed in doing that, and they have one that they're studying and it breaks free, and because one thing that they lean heavily into in all the extended stuff for Aliens, but they never really cover in the films, is that the aliens are meant to be psychic. Now, that's how they communicate.
Yeah, the hive mind kind of idea.
Yeah, it's the hive mind taken to because the whole thing is it is the perfect evolution of a predator.
Yeah.
And they're like, well, what would the perfect evolution of the hive mind be? It would be psychic ability. So what they do is they bring the idea of that into the books. So it ends up with they have an alien queen, and they're destroying most of her eggs, and they get some of the eggs, and they're using them for testing purposes. And actually in the book, they legitimately are trying to do the good thing in a way, because they're like, oh yes, and this thing here, we found that this aspect of the blood can be used for this medical purposes and stuff. And you're like, okay, this is actually like, they're not trying to be complete shitheads about it, which is unusual for the Alien universe. But
yes.
But I'm like, okay, I actually like that they're developing it, and it seems to be a case of it's just this is all going to go horribly wrong, and you know it is, but at the same time, it wasn't them trying to be horrible about it.
Yeah, it wasn't the usual. Well, if we can use it to kill things, and there's a military aspect here, because then we can use it to kill things. You're like, why would you do that?
Yeah, like, they talk about the military aspect, but then they also talk about like, but we can also use. We've also found this is really good for this. We found this is really good for the X, Y, and Z, and they're looking at everything. They're like looking at the armor, and they're like, we can make a new like the exoskeleton, the chitinous
Yeah,
exoskeleton. They're like, this is actually like super lightweight and really strong, and we could use this for building implements later on. You know, all this sort of thing. And you're like, okay, yeah, this is actually the way scientific research kind of goes. If they find something new and they're looking at it and they're like that whole thing that there's like a certain crab or something where they'd used its blood as an antiseptic
yeah,
or
the
yeah.
horseshoe crab, and I've seen the weirdest videos in the world are farms of those guys,
Yes,
and you're like, I don't really care too much about crabs. It's not like they're doing experiments on monkeys or anything, but you kind of look at it going, that is super weird. Like you must feel like a villain
it's like, what
doing
do you
that.
do for a living? I milk the blood of the horseshoe crab.
Yeah,
Okay,
it's
fine.
it's very much that Mitchell and Webb thing of you'd have to look at your friend and go, are we the bad guys? Because this feels bad.
Yeah, and it is kind of messed up, but at the same time, it is kind of interesting. You
Mm.
know, it's that whole okay, that is the proper scientific approach, and that's what I liked about these alien books.
So it
So
comes out in the books more so than the movies, is what you're saying.
yeah, and what they do with it is that they basically you know the psychic power of the aliens. Essentially, all these people started having these dreams
Right, right.
about the aliens, even though they don't have no idea what they are. Because
That's
it's
very Lovecraftian. There's a
oh yeah, there's a
great
whole
big
thing where a load of cultists break into the complex because the queen is controlling them all. Like she's imprinted herself on them,
right.
and because it's like only one out of every 12,000 people or 14,000 people is susceptible to this. So
Right.
it never comes up in the films, but when you put them in a population center or near a population center, and there's a description of them like breaking in, and they all walk into the egg room, and they all voluntarily bend over an egg individually before the security feed cuts out, and you're like,
That's
okay, that's kind of grim, but
yeah, it's fun.
yeah, but it's and like I said, it's very well done. It's a nice little kind of application for a thing, and that's what I'm saying. Like those little details are done so well in the books, and are completely skipped over in the films. Like one of the other things that they do quite well in the books is so that it extends on Earth becomes overrun. They do a book called Nightmare Asylum where people have to try and get people are coming back to Earth and they're like, oh shit, everything's overrun.
There's none called Rainbow Connection or anything. It's all Nightmare
No,
Asylum.
yeah, Nightmare Asylum is the thing, and it's literally it's not like asylum as in a mental asylum. It's as in I'm seeking political asylum or something like that.
Right.
But they go into an area where they go into like a remote kind of base on one of the little moons. I think of Mars, and there's a what you call it? There's a scientist there who's doing this whole thing of we're going to I don't know leave at least one open so we can see when it's daytime. This is we're gonna do we're gonna train them. Oh, don't start that. It's like we're gonna train them, and what he does is he it's where a lot of the influence for Alien Resurrection came from.
Mm.
So there's the whole bit where Brad Dourif has his hand over the freeze button, and he's basically like the aliens on the other side of this like bulletproof glass.
Yeah.
And as he goes he like slams off the glass and he hits the button and
Yeah.
like freezes them, and then like they go to do it again and he puts his hand over it and they stop. There's a
Yeah.
similar thing where they're like the queen's super protective of the eggs. She doesn't give a shit about the drones. Once the drones are born, she's like the drones can look after themselves. So she's
Yeah.
super protective about the eggs. So he has in Limestone, there's like a room where they have all the eggs, and the entire floor is like a metal grill, and there's flamethrowers underneath the floor.
Mm.
And she knows what the button does, and she can see like there's a screen in the queen's room. She's all bound up and all that. And there's
Yep.
a screen in the queen's room, which shows him hovering over that button, and because of that, she'll let him do anything because she's like,
Right.
I'll protect the eggs, and she lets him like she'll basically tell all the drones, do not attack this guy. So there's a really good description in the book where he's going in and he's spray painting numbers onto their foreheads so he can tell them apart. And like everyone else is like, this guy's insane. Like he has no fear, and he's like, no, I know she won't touch me, because if they do, like this will all go. That all that element to it, like and like you're saying, it's world building. It's really good, and it's kind of this is a weird thing I know that's going to happen in this episode. So many good series have been developed into these extended universes, and that's actually where a lot of the great world building happens.
Yeah.
Because
And
they don't have
it's
time in the films or the TV shows or the books, or sorry, or the games to actually do it. Like,
I've heard that the Halo extended universe is really really in depth and stuff, and
yeah,
I find it very hard to care about Halo. Like it's the shooty game. It's not. I don't really care about Master Chef or whatever he's doing.
there's a really good film actually. It's on Netflix.
Is there?
And there's a film, and it was done by Weta, and it was done as a. I think it's getting daytime out. Yeah, it is. It was done by Weta Workshop, and because originally it was your man Neil Blomkamp. He was meant to be doing a Halo film, and then that fell through. So he went and he just made District 9 with them instead.
So District 9 is the one I was going to contrast to Alien, because I think District 9 has some of the best world building I've ever seen. It's got this lovely kind of like my favorite thing in District 9 is the fact that there's slang for all the guys.
Yes.
The aliens, they're outside Johannesburg and they're in these slums, and like from the moment it starts, I can tell like that these guys have been living together for a while and exactly what their relationship is to each other.
Yeah, and that's one thing that I've always seen in when it comes to world building and stuff, is the stuff like that, like slang, like old school racial hatreds and stuff. Like it's one of those things that it's a cliche in the likes of Dungeons and Dragons where orcs and elves hate each other. Even in in Dungeons and Dragons where orcs aren't like Tolkien orcs, where they're just these big kind of hyper aggro brutes. But there's always like in D&D there's like half orcs and there's orcs, and they're kind of very reminiscent of the Klingons almost in Star Trek.
Yeah.
And even then there's this whole thing of people all the elves hate them. There's just this natural enmity between them. But that to me suggests it's a great way of conveying this whole thing of, well, no, both these species have been coexisting for thousands of years and they just don't get along. And actually I have to say there was a so there's a very, I don't know, polarizing film. I wouldn't say controversial, but a very polarizing film recently was Bright. I don't know if you've watched it.
Yeah. They came up on the Netflixes.
Yeah, it's one of the Netflix owned ones, and it's Will Smith and Joel Edgerton, and it's essentially Shadowrun, the film. Shadowrun being the old
or pen and paper RPG.
Yeah, it's pen and paper RPG where it's like the modern day or slightly future world, and then magic returns to the world, and it's like, oh, okay, everything's kind of gone weird. So people who are like, magic disappeared from the world, and that's why we have all these legends of orcs and dwarves and elves and all the rest. And we were like, but we could never find trace of them. It's because they'd all been turned into humans, and then suddenly it all reverts. So suddenly, like people were like, "Wait, I was an orc all along," because their bloodline was orc. And Bright was kind of that, the film, but I liked the way it didn't go too much into it. It didn't go too far into the background, like.
It is very similar to District 9 in that it does a lot of showing you the aftermath and showing you the results rather than really, really going into explaining. I think obviously books are very, it's handy to be able to just say, be able to give you a quick rundown of something.
Yeah, but in books you can even just have it as two of the characters, talking about a situation or, oh, but we know about this, and devoting 2 pages out of 800 does nothing. Yeah. But 2 pages out of 800 is 2 minutes out of a 100-minute film, which is a lot more it's a lot more real estate that you're taking up overall. But go on, you were saying contrasting the two of them.
Yeah, just to me, Aliens is one that's a mess, and because it's such a long-running series, maybe that they clearly with every movie they had their own plans, and clearly they were doing their own things, but they had such an opportunity to keep building and building and building on it.
Yeah.
But District 9 from the get-go, and because it's maybe a standalone, you just get that feeling like as soon as it starts, you kind of know exactly where everybody stands, and it gets so reinforced, and it's so kind of fun. And again, the slang and the racism, and you can see exactly how everybody's had to coexist. Another one that does it really well, where it's showing you something and it doesn't lean on sci-fi or fancy or anything, is Idiocracy,
Yes.
where you
Yes.
jump forward into the future and everything on screen reinforces the world that they're now in. He's now gone into he's in the magical world, but he goes to like
Well,
the future.
like
The future.
explain what it is, because there might be people out there who haven't seen it.
So
So
Idiocracy is a movie about a guy who is a very middling intelligence guy, and he gets cryogenically frozen or something and wakes up in the far future. And it is a future.
he's in the army and he doesn't want to really do anything in the army, but
Yeah,
he does enough to get by, so they can't really get rid of him.
and
And he volunteers for this program where he will be cryogenically frozen, and stuff goes wrong. Essentially,
the intro to it is like kind of this weird Darwinism thing where humans have now evolved beyond the need for intelligence nearly, where
yeah.
the smart people hold off on having kids because obviously the world's a mess, whereas the dumbest people in the world keep procreating because we've created a situation where they can't get killed anymore. Everything they do allows them just to keep being dumb and keep making babies. So in the future, everyone's dumb. And it's even like the building names in the backgrounds, instead of Fuddruckers, which is a real chain in America, it's called Buttfuckers. And
Yeah,
just
it's done by Mike Judge, the guy who did Beavis and Butthead and Daria.
Yeah.
And he has a very satirical look on. Yeah, he's always had a very satirical eye for modern day pop culture and society and trends and stuff. So,
but seeing like in the background the skyscrapers and like just all the trash, where of course in the future they don't know how to deal with trash, so like there's just absolutely garbage everywhere. But like the skyscrapers look like they're held up with like electrical tape and stuff. It is just super fun, and the idea that everybody forgot that like plants can't have electrolytes or plants can't have salt water.
What are you talking about? They're what plants need. They have what plants crave.
It's got what plants crave. You can't put water in that.
There's actually, particularly over the last year or so, with everything going on in the American political system, there's this been recurring joke of, Idiocracy has become more of a prophetic film, a prophetic doomsday film than a comedy satire.
Yeah.
And I'm sure some people were looking at it going, what the hell is Idiocracy? Because it's one of those films that at the time it never really got too much attention.
Yeah, it's got something of a cult following, I would say, of people who kind of know it and love it. But like any screenshot from that from it shows like the kind of depths of depravity that humanity has fallen to.
Yes.
And I just everybody reinforced each other in the world building. Like the characters and the script is great. But the set dressing, the guys who just ran with their characters, he's like, you're the dumbest guy in the world, go. And he's like, amazing. And the guy who's the president, he's an ex-porn star and
it's
WWE.
Terry Crews.
Yeah, Terry Crews, WWE.
Comanche Jones.
He wears the belt.
Yeah.
As Wiley's president. Oh, it's so
To be
good.
fair, if I was WWE champion, I'd do the same.
Absolutely.
He didn't ever get me off the thing. So, one thing that I like, just there was one scene in that film, and I watched it again maybe. Oh, I remember watching it when it came out, and I watched it again maybe 2 years ago, and there was one scene that even then had that seemed so prophetic. Was the when he goes into the hospital. And it's the scene when he goes into the hospital, and he's like, help! I need help because this has happened to me. And they just kind of look at him, and then they look at this like Fisher-Price style board in front of them with all these different pictures, and one of them is like a picture of a person's knee with a plaster on it, and one's like of an arm broken and all. And it's that whole thing of like being on a website, and it's like, or when you call up any type of bank helpline, and it's like, for option A, press that, and I'm like, I know that was kind of what they were taking the piss out of initially, but it's gotten so bad with it now that it's that they try and simplify it down too much now. It almost feels. That particular scene, I was like, wow, that's just kind of what any type of customer interaction is nowadays.
Oh, absolutely, yeah. That's what they're trying to get. Like, you walk into banks, and instead of a person helping you do something, they direct you to the little computer that's going to help you do the thing.
Yeah. Well, like part of it is as well. Part of that stuff is because I understand why the likes of banks do it, in that if you go in and you go, something's wrong with my account, whatever, blah blah blah, and they go, cool. If you can use this particular device over here, it will help you. And
Yes.
what that does is that has a record of everything on it.
Yeah.
So you can turn around and go, that's not, no, he told me blah blah blah, and it's like, no, we have a full recording of every interaction with that, of every button you pressed, of every answer you gave. It's all automatically there, and that's that's a what would you call it? A liability.
Yeah, that makes sense.
A liability proofing that they do.
Everything else there. Yeah, I think one of the ones that I think is the big difference then between setting and world building is Mad Max. Because I really love Mad Max, and it's another one where everything you see, everything that people do, reinforces the brand, reinforces like this cool, awesome kind of diesel punk future.
Yeah.
But
which we've already established you're a fan of. So
yes. Yeah, it's one that's just a weird one. I really loved Fury Road. I thought it was absolutely brilliant. It didn't really fit in with the previous ones in terms of like continuity, and like it literally doesn't.
But I think that's fine, and I actually kind of like the way some people were turning around and going, oh, the Max in that is actually the feral kid that he gives the that's in the third one. And that's he's kind of inherited the mantle.
Yeah,
and another people, but then that there was hardcore fans are able to go, no, it's not, and that's fine, because people weren't being super rabid about it. They were just kind of like, oh, wouldn't it be cool if?
Yeah. But it's you look at Immortan Joe on his armor, he's got like bits of Nokia phones and bits and pieces of things like that, and you can see everything from the past. And I think they do an amazing job of Mad Max of doing a kind of cargo cult feel, and just running with that concept that the world is now a cargo cult. Everybody's trying to figure out what the previous incarnation was, what the progenitors to their civilization was.
Yeah.
And they're all coming up with their own theories, and some people are worshipping airplanes and the captain. Some people are just going absolutely mental and turning into marauders. Some people have dragged a few things forward, like electric guitars and things like that. But
electric guitar flamethrowers.
Yes, I mean obviously it's the natural progression.
Yes, yeah.
But seeing every single tribe and everybody's got their own belief system and things like that, it's just such a fun way of basically saying, obviously everything everyone believes in is shite.
Yeah.
But here's a fun way of seeing where all this shite came about. Yo.
No. And one of the things I think a lot of what Mad Max has going for it as well, the Fury Road one, is that they didn't try, and they basically did it in such a way of like people go, oh, it's a reboot, and they just are able to go, is it?
Yeah.
I don't know. Is it a reboot? Oh, okay. No, it's definitely a reboot. Mm-hmm.
It is a reboot and a sequel and a completely separate story.
I think when you're very specific about whether it is or not, that will put a certain amount of the fan base against you no matter what.
Yeah.
And like there is something that so one of the video content creators that I watch a lot are the Funhouse guys on YouTube, and as they always say in their Filmhouse podcast, the stuff that you originally enjoyed isn't taken away. It's always there.
Yep.
That is still there. You can still go back and watch it. You can still go back and appreciate it and enjoy it. It's so, but at the same time, like that kind of when you don't specify that this is a reboot, people can kind of go, it is a reboot. People go, no, it's not.
Yeah.
Or this is somebody who's heard the legend of Mad Max and is trying to live on as him. You know what I mean? And that's fine. They're able to take that view, that approach, I should say.
The movie that did it the best, and it's a weird one, is National Lampoon's Vacation. And I think it came out over here as just the movie Vacation, and it had Glasses dude from The Hangover as the main dude. Is that right? But it was both a reboot and a direct sequel. and like a reimagining. It was everything.
Oh right, yeah, he plays
Where
like Griswold Jr. or whatever.
they actually do a sequence at the start where the main guy, the father, is saying how much he loves his vacations, and they do a little flip of all of the old movies, and it's basically like all the sequels and stuff. But he was one of the kids that was recast. So like while he's flipping through the pictures of his young self, at one point it just flips to a completely different kid, and he's like, "Oh, I changed so much that summer." Or they just put a hat on it and say, "Yeah, look it, fuck it." And then they do the entire movie, and then at the end he goes and like meets his dad. It's Chevy Chase. And you're like, "Oh wait, this is not a reboot. This is a direct sequel." Absolutely, like they just completely ignored Chevy Chase for most of the movie, and then at the very end go, "Yeah, there you go, bring it all together."
The guy who plays Immortan Joe was
Was he Toe Cutter?
yeah, he's Toe Cutter in the original Mad Max.
Yeah.
So it isn't like it is essentially we like, yeah, it could be anyone though because of the mask. We
Yeah,
don't know
exactly.
it's him. You know, that's fine. Like,
Yeah.
yeah, as a film example, that's pretty good. I mean, for me, actually, it was weird that you brought up the Aliens one because the Aliens for me will be one of the better ones, and that's kind of why I mentioned the books because I've read all the graphic novels, I have all the books, and they were a series that I really enjoyed. How they develop it further out because they kind of, I think in a way there's certain elements now. While the films are masterpieces, particularly the first two are masterpieces of filmmaking,
Mm.
both as a suspense kind of stalker horror and as a out and out action film. Um, the books kind of surpass them in some ways. So,
Yeah, I could see it.
like as I was saying, like they do the whole thing with Earth gets invaded, then they do the whole thing where they're like living elsewhere and they're trying to survive this kind of ridiculous nightmare situation they're put in where they're basically trapped on this planet with this lunatic who's trying to raise the aliens as his own kind of workforce. And then there's a bit later
You gotta
on.
respect that.
Yeah, I mean, like you know, it's this whole thing of the man is always trying to harness the power of what's around him, and that you know.
We're great at that.
But then they do another one after that where it was also parts of Alien Resurrection where there's a clone of Ripley,
Right.
and they bring her in, and which is not, it's not quite a clone, but they bring her in, and they figure out it's like, yeah, people are at this point it's established, yes, people who have some latent psychic ability do receive messages from the aliens and so on. And then it starts happening that some of them start getting these messages from what they can only describe as like a super queen. It's a
Right.
queen. It's a queen that doesn't look like a queen. It looks a lot bigger, and they basically, one of the guys is able to do like lucid dreaming, and it like take control of his dreams, and they figure it out, and they try and find out where it is. And the idea is that they go and capture this super queen, and then they transport it to Earth, and dump it because there's a repeating message of "Come to me, my children, come to me." Right, so it's like constantly calling out to all of her progeny, and they capture her and they dump her in a football stadium in America, and they surround the whole site with nukes.
This is for good reasons, right?
Yeah, no, and they put it on a 6-month timer, and they're like, it'll take roughly 6 months for every alien on Earth to get to her. Right. And then these nukes will go off and wipe out them all on Earth.
And Earth is a lost cause at this stage.
Yeah, Earth is completely overrun. They're like humanity is completely evacuated Earth. So they do this, and that's how humanity reclaims Earth, where they have to basically like drop this super queen down, nuke the shit out of the place, and then what's left is like there's a couple of small pockets. So the later books then are humanity's on Earth, but then there's certain cities that you can't go in there because there might still be one or two drones, because when the Super Queen went down, it mentally fucked up a lot of the drones.
Yeah, so I can see it.
They slow down slightly, and they become slightly less efficient, and then it takes time for them to recover. But then they start finding out stuff that like Alien Royal Jelly does stuff. Because they go further. I
completely take it back. I was going to say like the world building in the movies, it was a little bit slapdash. Now that you've said the words alien royal jelly, I'm completely on board.
Well, that's the thing. It's just, they amplified the insect thing. So they're like, yeah, there's this royal jelly, like, and what happens when, like, again, they're looking at it of like, oh, well, we found that this can be used for this medical purposes and anything. And there's a description where there's a guy at the start of one of the books, and he's an athlete, and it's like the first attempt at an Olympic Games since Earth has started to be repopulated and all the rest. And he's like been taking these tablets that are made from royal jelly,
Right.
and he starts like talking about how he has like he doesn't like being out in the sunlight anymore and all this.
Right.
And
Right.
there's these little mentions, but then he basically runs the 100 meters in like 5 seconds. Because it's amping him up so much. It's basically like such high drugs. But it's like it says his name is Jim. It's like Jim ran that in in 4.5 seconds, and he kept running as he ran straight through the wall. He basically runs and he can't stop, and there's a skeleton here, by the way, and he plants head first into the wall at the end of the track and mangles himself completely. I was like, that's just stupid, but at the same time, I like how they're trying to. The writers were like, what happens next? What do we do next with this? Yeah. And then how it tied in, like they kind of touched on it in the films, but a big part of the Alien franchise is the Predator franchise.
Yeah, of course.
And in the books, what it is that there's these multiple clans of predators. And what they do is they have, whenever people want to be blooded in the clan, whenever new members want to be blooded, they bring them on a hunt. And there'll be one of the clan members, usually the clan leader, and he'll have a symbol of the clan etched into his forehead using xenomorph blood. And that's where the scene in the first Alien vs. Predator film comes, when he breaks off the queen's finger and etches it in.
Yep. Was that a queen? Oh.
Yeah, the first one, yeah. So what happens is that you'll have one of the members and they bring 12 of these unblooded guys. And they're not given the shoulder blaster, they're just given their hand-to-hand weapons.
Right.
And they have these automated ships that have a queen on them, an alien queen that has all her limbs cut off, so she can't escape.
Right.
She's like bound up in these weird, S&M looking things. All her limbs missing, and she's just pumping out eggs. And then they have a scanner that scans the eggs, and if it has a queen facehugger in it, it destroys the egg. Otherwise, it puts 12 of them aside onto an automated ship, and flies them down to these planets where they know there's just wildlife. There's no sentient life forms. And then they come along a few months later, and the 12 aliens are out, and they've matured and have birthed and are running around the place. And then the 12 young bloods hunt them, and if each one successfully hunts one, then it's like, okay, that's your rite of passage into the Predator clan. And
you get your face scar.
You get your
helmet scar.
Yeah, you get the marking on your. No, it's on their forehead. It's not, because the Predator blood is alkaline. So it neutralizes the acidic nature of their blood after very quickly, so you only get a shallow scar. So what happens in the first AVP book is that there's a Weyland Yutani have settled this planet, and it's basically like the Wild West, and they're raising massive amounts of the local cow equivalent to feed the various things, because these things grow to be several tons in size. And you can have like 400 people raising tens of thousands of these things. And the ship comes along once every 2 years to collect them, and it's coming up on their first harvest. The thing is the Predators only come there every 5 years. So the last time the Predators visited that planet, there was no sentient life form on it. And they don't realize it's been settled. So the automated ship fires down 12 drone eggs. But one of them is being manipulated into being a queen egg. So all the herd of animals get implanted,
right?
And then the ship comes to claim them all, and the ship comes and loads all these implanted animals onto the ship, and they're like, all right, we're taking off tomorrow. Meanwhile, they all start getting chest bursting their way into the world.
What do their aliens look like? What do the xenomorphs from the cow equivalents look
like?
No,
they pretty much do them as regular drones, because it was the first in the series and they want them to look familiar.
So speaking of extended universes, I
remember you saying this.
The Aliens toys, and I had the Panther. I hadn't seen the movie Aliens. I think I'd seen Alien, but not Aliens.
Yeah.
And as part of the promotion for Aliens, they did all these toys, and the idea was that the different types of xenomorphs. It would show different types of xenomorphs if the facehugger had impregnated different types of animals. So I had the panther alien who looked kick-ass. Like he was a lot longer and more svelte and had this long tail, and I have the snake alien that looks like a human spine with an alien head, and it curls around.
It's got the Cobra hood on it, though.
Yeah, it's got the Cobra hood, and there was like the Rhino alien, which was even more armored and had like a spike that, because it was a toy, that you could fire the spike out and things like that. And I was like, I cannot wait to see this movie Aliens that clearly has all these incredible creatures in it.
The promo stuff was done for Alien 3. You wouldn't have been like, the toys wouldn't have been around for Aliens. The promo stuff was, it was Alien 3, because I remember getting them as well.
I still hadn't seen Aliens, so like I was like years later saw those movies and I was like, I don't understand. what is this?
But that's the thing, that they do in this they have the whole, like, so the predators arrive on the planet to start hunting them, and the humans find them, and there's an accident involving a human ship and the predator ship, and the predator clan leader gets knocked out, so the youths of the predators assume that it's the human fault, and they start hunting the humans, and then the aliens break out, and there's like a massive three-way battle between them. But it comes down to the female character, I cannot remember her name, who's in charge of running the whole place for Weyland-Yutani. She teams up with the predator leader. Like, they don't talk to each other, but there's like an understanding between them. And they hunt the aliens, and he gets taken out and all the rest. And before he dies, he marks her as a
young blood.
Yeah, and he, like, you're a member of the clan. And then what happens is Yutani realize, oh, okay, we can't hang around here because this planet's obviously claimed by another species, and we don't want to tango with them because those guys are not, like, they're not to be fucked with.
Yep.
And she chooses to stay on the planet. And like the last few panels of it, because all the books have been done as graphic novels as well. The graphic novels, obviously, it's more kind of visual naturally, but there's I kind of like both. I had both copies of each, because it was like, I'd like to read it, but I want to see how they've interpreted different things, you know?
Yeah.
And there's a bit where she's basically the only thing living on the planet, and there's her and there's a couple of her herd. She has a small herd so she can feed herself, like. And then there's like a pet dog or whatever, and she has the giant queen skull mounted above her bed that she killed. She's like, they never mention it in the book, and they never really bring it up in the graphic novel. But I'd love to be the bit where, like, wait, Yutani were like, "That's ours," and she's like, "No, it's not." And they're like, "Okay, no problem. You killed it. I suppose you can keep it."
Did you have other movie choices, or were
no, like the alien one, the Alien and the Alien vs Predator thing was kind of that one. Like, there's even one of the Predator novels, which are kind of alternate books. What happens is Dutch Schaefer, Arnie's character from Predator 1, his brother is a cop in New York, and a heat wave hits New York, and they basically go after his brother. They track him genetically because they're like, he was one of the best hunts that they ever had from your planet, so they're going to look for similar stock. And his brother gets hunted by them. You know, it was just all this kind of developed out, really well thought out, really well structured setup is what I've always liked about that universe. And I like, some of it is kind of ridiculous, but at the same time, it's like, I'm already accepting of the fact that there is an acid for blood, non-carbon, a silicon-based life form out there, which is, you know, which is basically face rapes you.
Yep.
To impregnate you, and then comes out through your chest and looks like a giant penis. And I'm already on board with all this, so, you know, if they do something else ridiculous, I'm like, well, I can't really, like, I'm fine with that, because fuck it, we're already in the realm of ridiculousness.
Oh yeah,
anyway,
absolutely.
Like, so it's, as long as it's consistent with the setting itself, I always like it. And everything they did with it, like the furthering the insect comparison, and I've always been kind of like, yeah, that works really well. So yeah, that for my film ones, they're kind of the ones that kind of jump out at me as being the ones that have always stuck with me.
Yeah. For TV, I was kind of looking at lots of different things. There's a few obvious ones. There's lots of again, it's kind of sci-fi and fantasy lend themselves onto it. We talked about Avatar: The Last Airbender recently, and it's an amazing example of world building. But just in general, I think there's been a whole spate of cartoons recently, between Adventure Time maybe starting it and Rick and Morty and Gravity Falls, where usually with cartoons they don't give, like, if they're aimed at kids, quote unquote. They don't really care about continuity that much.
Yeah.
But in these ones, they use continuity to have a lot more fun. And
Yes.
Even like Adventure Time, the continuity is that this is the end of the world, and it takes a while to come to that realization. You're watching it, and it's obviously crazy fantasy stuff, and it nearly feels like there's no continuity. And then certain things start getting repeated, or you notice things in the background again. A lot of set dressing does a lot of the work, and then you start realizing that like something has happened, some cataclysmic event involving nuclear war and magic at the same time.
Yes.
And you start noticing in like snowdrifts in the background, there's stuff from the old world, and they eventually just lean into it, and they use it quite well for like emotional stuff with Marceline and the Ice King.
Yeah, because they've been around for however long, like what's it, like thousands of years or whatever. And yeah, I always like that with Adventure Time, the way it's kind of not ambiguous, but
it's not. You're not supposed to pay attention to it. Weirdly, like it's
yeah,
there.
but it's the almost the approach of it's almost an approach of we don't have to draw, we shouldn't have to draw attention to this because it's fairly obvious. Like, of course, of course, we mean that. I like that aspect.
Yeah, and it really, really lets me know that the guys who make the show know what the world is. We don't. The watcher doesn't actually have to, but the guys who made the show really, really kind of know and care what's happening.
Yeah.
And they'll reveal it over time. With Gravity Falls, which is a show I absolutely love, they have it kind of the opposite way in that the guys who make the show know what's going on, but the fans are really interested in it. Like it's a show about kids solving mysteries and exploring and like delving deeper and finding all this magical stuff. And the online community that goes with it is nearly the extended universe. Like they have loads and loads of stuff online. There's loads of people putting forward fan theories. But you can buy books and you can buy stuff that gives you extra information. And it's really every part of it's fun. Everything they do that adds another little bit to it just sort of adds to the fun. And Rick and Morty does it in a way with the kind of like the continuity makes them nearly high sci-fi, makes them
but there's also that there is that whole thing of, because they've never really reinforced it, bar kind of season 3 did a bit, but before season 3 there was an argument to be made that the majority of the episodes all took place in a different reality.
Right, so that each episode was a different
version of them. Yeah. Like obviously the main one is C-137, but there was like they were able to say, how come they never reference this part again? It's like they never had to, because it was a different universe. So there's been a couple of different.
Even that's in continuity, though. Like even that.
Oh yeah. That suits the universe, and that, I mean, I think it's quite good. But I think it was more. I don't think they've ever specified the majority of it, because if they ever need a do-over, they do something and fans don't like it, they can just kind of go, that was C-138 or you know what I mean, or C-422. It's like,
yeah, exactly.
They can change it, and the fans can go, oh, okay. You know.
There is also the little not hint, it's a little Easter egg of the Gravity Falls and Rick and Morty take place in the same universe.
Yes.
Where at one point a portal opens in Gravity Falls, and some items from a table, like a coffee cup and a notepad, go flying through the portal. And then in an episode of Rick and Morty, in order to confuse some people who are chasing them, Rick opens up multiple portals, just puts a load of them up. Yeah. And as soon as he opens one, a coffee cup and a notebook flies through. And it's such a nice little touch that the two creators of the shows just did that nod.
Yeah.
And then afterwards, the guys in Gravity Falls, they had a book that came out as a supplement to the TV show. And in it, they have a load of things in silhouette to show like the kind of mystery monsters that might be seen in this world. And a few of them are monsters from Rick and Morty, or like what's that strain, the plumbus?
Yeah, this is the device that they never really explain what it does.
They have like that in silhouette in it, and you're kind of like, oh, good. So they're just nodding at each other constantly, and like even that's nice. It's a little bit of world building of these are both really weird, messed up kind of.
Well, did they work together on anything?
No, but the two guys are friends, Harmon and the guys who did Gravity Falls. I'm sure they've worked together on stuff in the past.
Yeah, okay. It's. I mean, there's the the Rick and Morty one is kind of, yeah, it was one that kind of jumped in my mind, mostly because of that aspect of um they don't they have that somewhat flexibility where they don't specify what setting it is. You know, is this the core C-137 universe, or is this episode? If they don't mention it in the episode, it could be any of them.
Exactly.
That's,
Yeah,
you know,
I mean, it is probably the one that any continuity errors can be reinforce the canon nearly rather than break it. Because to me, world building is about constantly reinforcing everything. Everything you show the viewer reinforces some small element of it. You're not wasting their time. And it is the kind of one thing where you can kind of go away and do a complete random like theme episode, and it still is 100% on brand.
yeah, because it's the majority of it is the majority of the appeal, I would say, is not the overarching storyline. Though they have kind of leaned into, like I said, with season 3 with of Rick and Morty, with like Beth and Jerry splitting up and then getting back together, that whole process. But it's more the tone of the show, the message that the show gives. Like, I mean, probably the best episode in season 3 for me, anyway, was the one where it's based in the world that was the fallout from the Citadel of Rick's getting taken out.
Yes.
And it pretty much never references, like they mention what had happened, that they ended up in that location, in that situation, but it doesn't actually it doesn't focus on the principal Rick and Morty they have in the other ones.
So graceful.
So graceful. Like
graceful swan.
Like a gazelle that has mad cow disease.
I can't see myself, but I did. And in terms of, we're talking so much about Alien, just got that T-shirt.
Oh, lovely.
Yeah, so that's kind of fun. Everyone sees me weird. I was like, oh, fun, and then they look at it from and go, it's really disturbing.
Yeah. But I approve nonetheless.
Yes. While we're talking about world building and playing Minecraft, building worlds, one of the TV shows I want to talk about is Westworld.
Okay.
Where they're literally building a world.
Yeah. Well, it's kind of, the world is already built for the most part. Yeah,
they're building a town that exists, and I think it's a really, really fun one to look at, because the meta story, the kind of the overworld story, is that this is a world where this technology can exist, where they can make these perfect humanoid robots, and like, what is the ethics and morals to go with that? Yeah. And then there's all these other little things, like they make references to all the pyrotechnics and gunfire being its own technology.
Yes.
And it's like, everything in it is so technologically advanced, and in another TV show they might dwell on it and try to explain some of it. I really like the fact that they don't. I really like the fact that they don't go into the details of how any of it works.
But that's because it's not the important part.
Exactly.
You just have to, all they have to do is say, this is, yeah, no, it's fine. Because technology, because magic, because the guy behind the curtain. Don't worry about it. It's not the point of the story.
It really, and any inconsistencies, people are like, wait, how did the bullets work that way? How can he shoot through a wall? To me, I don't care. I'm like, no, I trust the tech covers it. I trust that, like, they wouldn't have written that in if they kind of didn't want that to be something that you'd notice or something like that. But it really is interesting. And then within that, it's the world that the robots live in, the world that they exist in, and the fact that somebody has built this world for them, and they're kind of testing the limits of it constantly. They're always kind of finding their bounds and getting confused and doing that. I think the world of Westworld is really, really interesting. And I love anything like that, where it's basically, here's exactly the world you're in with one change. Basically, here's robots you're allowed to kill, and they look exactly like humans. It's like, what's the consequences of that? And from that one change, all of human history, all of human society will have to change.
Yeah.
Because that's the killer app. That's the thing that changes everything.
Yeah, there's a couple of things that, like, every so often something will happen in Westworld, and I go, oh, but how does that explain? And then something else will happen, or something, like, the show is very well written and it's very well acted. So something will pop up and I'll be like, but that doesn't explain X, Y, or Z. and then 30 seconds later, I've forgotten about it because something good is happening or some
Yes.
good acting is taking place, and I'm able to go, oh, I don't care. This is just this is still perfectly entertaining and fine. That to me is, I mean, okay, yeah, it's the strength of the world, but at the same time, it's the strength of the actual storytelling element of it and the acting.
Yeah, I think so.
And it's if it wasn't well acted, if it was a nice idea, if it was an interesting idea but mediocre acting or mediocre writing, I would be obsessing over. I'd be nitpicking too much.
I think because the show hand waves a lot of stuff itself, you as the watcher can hand wave it as well. You're like, okay, I guess we're not dwelling on that. That's absolutely fine.
Yeah, I suppose just slightly bouncing back to film, they do that in Looper, where they're talking about the time travel part, and Jeff Daniels' character is just like, look, don't think about it, it'll give you a headache. And I love that.
Is that a line literally from Austin Powers as well?
It could be, but they go into the whole thing of, look, don't worry about it, it'll give you a headache. I'm like, great, because it's not ultimately relevant to like how this works. Isn't the key point of this story? It's all about the aftermath and the outfall of it.
Yeah,
it's just accept that this can happen and go with the story. And then wait a few years and complain that he killed Star Wars. Sorry. But yeah, that type of it's weird. It almost, I think if it's done correctly, that type of hand waving can almost reinforce a world.
Yes, and I think there's things. Basically, I'll know if there's a good world or a really bad world depending on the number of fan theories there are. Sometimes there's like a really popular franchise, but the world building is so bad that people have to come up with fan theories in order to fill in the blanks.
Yeah.
Or there's a plot hole so big that somebody needs to just insert something. Like the James Bond thing of James Bond is a title rather than a person.
Yeah.
Is such a good fan theory that they might as well just make it canon. Like that.
I think they kind of have.
They did, because I think in Casino Royale there's a bit where some woman is about to die or something, and M says to him, does she know anything about you that could identify you? And he says no. And I'm like, wait, she knows who you fucking are, she knows your name. But the fact that he says no there is them kind of going, no, like that's why would, like, James Bond isn't his name, clearly. Like that's
it's the John Doe of the spy world.
It's the Alan Smithy.
Yeah, and to me, like, that's something that I've always thought they should have done anyway with Bond, and I think it suits it quite well. Where it's because it all contributes to the aspect of deniability.
Yeah.
Which is, vital to any spy setting. Like, you have to have that, or else it's just, what's the point? Like, it's, because like I always had an issue with the older films, but like over time it's kind of worn off me, because I started to look at it more like, this is a code word, this is a code name, this is not his actual name. Because to me,
you kind of have to, because he got married at one point. Like, there's a bunch of weird stuff that if he's supposed to be the same dude, you're like, this guy is the weirdest. Like, he's clearly a psychopath no matter what. But...
Oh yeah. But it was more the whole thing of, to me, it was like, if you're a secret agent, why the fuck are you telling everyone your name? Well, why is it the first thing you do is you tell everyone your name?
World's greatest secret agent, Bond, James Bond.
Yeah, whereas that's why I always preferred the likes of the Jason Bourne films, because it was like, if Matt Damon was not famous, you could walk by him in the street and not look at him twice.
Yeah.
And that is in no way a slight on Matt Damon. He is very much like the average looking guy. He's, he is the starting point from which somebody will do a photo identification, or we need you to sit with a sketch artist, and he sits down with a picture of Matt Damon and goes, right, so let me fill in the details here. And but like, he's
the fourth head in it, like, make your own character in Skyrim or something.
Preset 7, like, but that's fine. And that and particularly the way he carries himself in those films, and there's almost like the slight nervousness that that kicks in before he will turn full super agent badass.
Yeah,
that to me was always like a really good display of acting and a really good display of the character, when compared to, I'm going to walk around everywhere in a tux, I'm going to hit on everyone, to make myself as memorable as possible,
well,
and I'm going to tell everyone my name.
If we accept that theory, it's a code name. It also means the bad guys know it's a code name, because there's also times where like James Bond's here. Oh, James Bond's here. Like
yeah. And
I completely accept it. It's like, oh, they've said it's like Interpol is here. Like the term
like,
means something.
There's another one.
Yeah. Oh, we've got a James Bond. He's like, actually, we've already got a James Bond in the casino. It's like, well, don't let them see each other. It'll be very embarrassing.
Well, there's that's in the Venture Brothers.
Is it?
Where they go into a casino, and Hank Venture's like to Brock Sampson's like, "Oh, we're gonna play Baccarat," and he's like, "No, nobody really plays Baccarat. Everyone at that table's a secret agent." And there's like 6 guys in tuxes all staring at each other slyly, and it's like the waiter comes over and he's got like a load of martinis. He's like, "I got everyone's martinis," and one guy's like, "I asked for mine shaken." He's like, "They're all shaken." But it's just like, yeah, that's the thing, you know, you never actually see people playing. People don't know how to play Baccarat unless they're a secret agent.
It's not, yeah, absolutely. It's not a real thing.
No. So yeah, the whole we've got another James Bond here. All right, hang on. There's probably like yeah, like does Spectre just have a cell with James Bond's name on it? You know, there's another one.
Put him in the tank. It's just all these guys. One guy in a white tux, one guy in a black tux. Just scuba gear.
I'm waiting for the Bond film where he runs into he comes up against the guy and he's like, "What's your name?" "Oh, my name is, you know, Jethro Simmons, but they call me the Bond Killer." "Well, you haven't killed me yet." "No, I didn't get the name from you." And it's like, wait, what?
Yeah.
From like that's the thing. Like it's weird. James Bond is almost like a TV series in film, because there's so many of them.
Yeah.
There's like 20 odd films, but it's just a mess. That's more of a mess of continuity than Rick and Morty is.
It is actually, yes. You can't watch someone like parkouring across rooftops and shit and go, "Did he have an invisible car on stage?" Flying across glaciers doing bullshit.
Don't get me wrong, they're still entertaining films, particularly since Daniel Craig came into them.
Yeah.
He's made it very entertaining. Because I just think he can do the mentally damaged and the suave bit quite well.
I think that the next Bond should be Indian, because they've had every English colony so far. They've had American, Welsh, Scottish, Irish, and Australian. Are they Australian? Yeah, Timothy Dalton. And I just think they should keep going with British colonies, and I think they should do an Indian one next.
I still think Idris Elba should do it, but that's just me.
Yeah, either Idris Elba or like a Lady Bond. That'd be a fun one.
Idris Elba for... Oh, well, no, we... Like, yeah, no, actually, no, I want a Lady Bond now, just to watch the internet that got angry over a female Doctor Who fucking explode.
Yeah, but Bond is supposed to sleep with ladies. Maybe she wants some dick. No!
Of course, if they actually do the whole thing of like, "Oh, no, it's like Bond will still sleep with the ladies," and then they'll be like, "Oh, I don't know if to be angry or not now."
Yeah, I've got such a rage boner.
TV wise, I don't know. Like, I mean, I was kind of looking at this, and there's some that are. I can't really think of one TV series other than the likes of Rick and Morty that would have an overarching world building type feel that wasn't just kind of touched on. Like, there's one thing, like, so one of my favorite TV series is The West Wing. And one thing that they do in The West Wing is there are 2 seasons in, and then 9/11 happened.
Right.
And they do a standalone episode at the start of season 3, and season 3 was delayed because they were meant to debut season 3, and then it happened. And they delayed it for 2 weeks, and in those 2 weeks, they wrote, shot, edited, produced the whole lot, an entire standalone episode.
That's very Aaron Sorkin.
Yeah, they produced an entire episode, and it was kind of, they don't specifically mention 9/11 in it, but it's about there's a terrorist threat somewhere in the US due to a couple of embassies and whatnot being getting threats, and then there's a guy in the White House who's Muslim,
right?
And it's suspected of it's something to do with him, and he starts getting interrogated and all the rest, and he's just like, he's innocent and he's pissed off, and like he's very rightfully pissed off. But there's the whole thing of it's he's like, it wasn't just me. He's like, oh, I was standing beside you when we were shot at, referencing the end of season 1.
Yeah.
He's like, when people were shooting at us, I was standing there as well. And it's this whole thing of, you know, it was him going like, the majority of people, like, you know, there was Muslims in the towers. There were these people and in the Pentagon, and like, you know, people like don't associate with us. And they do a whole thing where it's a school is visiting the White House. It's like a school class that have won this award, and they're visiting the White House, and then the White House goes into lockdown. And to try and keep them entertained, he brings them down. They bring them down to the canteen, and they're just talking to them, and then people are coming in and out and talking to the class, and they're talking about radicalism. And there's a bit where they do a thing in honor of the SATs that they're about to take. He's like, the Taliban is to blank as the KKK is to blank, and it's that whole, you know, like the Taliban is to Islam as the KKK is to Christianity.
Yeah,
they're just fundamentalist extremists and all this, and they go through it. And it's very well done, and then they never mention 9/11 again. It's never brought up in the series, from what I can remember. They're like it because Sorkin, being Sorkin, he was like, I was writing a story, and I had not got this factored in when I was writing the story, so I am never going to factor it in. It's, you know, and whether that's the cocaine talking or not. Because that man did all the cocaine for a while.
We're a big fan of cocaine auteurs on this show, aren't we?
It's not that we're advocating the use of cocaine, but yeah, it does seem to be a thing.
Yeah.
But that was just something that I actually thought was quite well done. That they don't try and not excuse it, but they just like, we're not going to acknowledge it. Why not? Because we don't need to. It's not part of our story. And you're like, okay. So I always appreciate that in TV and film, where they're just like, something has happened in the real world, and like 9/11 was such a defining aspect of our generation that they're able to go, no, we're not going to bring it up. Why not? Because it's not important. It's not important in terms of our storytelling. And you're like, okay, well,
it is sort of an insane thing to take in what is supposed to be a factual show, and it's not really a factual show. It's nearly alternate reality. Anytime they do the American president as a trope,
well, the whole thing is that you're able to, if you know the West Wing, you're able to identify the point where it splits from normal, the normal like timeline. I actually don't know that part of it that well, because I don't know the actual American presidents that well.
Yeah.
But there is a,
like, do they reference Nixon? Who does exist as a president?
Yeah, it's I could look it up, but we're in the middle of this. But it's the main thing is just that they have their own thing that they're sticking to, and that's their intention. Kind of the inverse of it, though, one that like a show that did a very good job of referencing it and making it part of the whole thing was Fringe. So in Fringe, there's the two worlds that exist side by side, and the point where they go from one to the other, and there's a big we'll
call them 1 and B.
1 and B, correct. And it's the great bit in The Simpsons where he's like listing off things, and he holds up his fingers and he's like A, 2, and D. But yeah, there's a whole thing in Fringe where it's they are the Olivia Dunn goes to the alternate world, and one of the first things she sees, she's talking to Leonard Nimoy's character, William Bell, and when she looks out of his office, she actually realizes she's in the Two Towers.
Yes.
And there's the whole moment where she's like, we're not in Kansas anymore, Jonathan. That's the big kind of, oh shit. And I actually really like the way that was done. But at the same time, it's, you know, they still focus on the differences between the two worlds, but the differences, like, that's there, and it's very much to let the viewer know, without saying anything, but in the most clear, resounding way possible, you are somewhere different now.
Yep.
And then everything else that they reference with it is, in terms of them being different, is more to do with stuff that's the impact of the tear between worlds and all the weird shit that's happened in the secondary world. And the fact that they have Zeppelins. They still have Zeppelins. It's just this thing.
Yes.
But they lean into it. But they use 9/11 again because it's such a defining moment of our generation. They show it once, and it's very much kind of a, here you go. Here it is right here. And we're showing it at the very end of season 2. And a very much, I think it's the very end of, it might be the very start of season 2, and it's start of season 2, and it's a very clear, resounding, things are about to go weird.
A nice touch in Fringe as well is because it's a world where the internet exists and like internet culture exists. They start using terms in the show that sound very internet culture. So like they call the other Olivia Faux-Livia.
Yes.
As in like a little slight on her, like, 'cause you're not the real one, you're not our Olivia.
Yeah.
And it's such a nice little touch of like, yeah, that's exactly what people would be doing. And obviously, it feels like that's a fan-made thing, but they wrote it into the show from the get-go, from the jump. So it's such a funny little thing for them to have thrown in. And like it feels like something that's what the guys who are writing the show stuck in. And we're like, we'll replace that. And you're like, no, that's how people would talk. They'd like be getting...
particularly it's how fans would talk. It is very much like you're saying that it is that kind of. Yeah, that is kind of how fans would address something like this, because people will come up with a term and it'll stick. But yeah, like the few times that they go to the alternate world, the alternate reality, there's a couple of things. Like there's one where Peter goes over and he's in the apartment. Because when he finds out he's from there originally, #spoilers and all that.
Spoilers.
But he finds out, he's actually from that reality, and him being brought over was what caused all the problems. And he's in the apartment, and he's just looking on the wall. There's a load of like first edition comics, first edition issue 1s framed, and it's like the Red Lantern, and the Hulk is red as well, if I remember. It's just stuff like that. I'm like, I like that. I like that someone actually thought of, well, yeah, what would be different in pop culture? What would be the weirdness, in that respects? So anything like that, I'm always gonna I like that. I like that little nod. That little, it's the smallest detail. But that will always give me ideas of, okay, oh, that's interesting, oh, that's whatever, So yeah, those two worlds. I know it's like, it's obviously, I find it very hard, because when I get into a series, I'll usually look at everything around it, and I very quickly. So like then when something pops up, I'm like, of course, and it doesn't register as world building for me. But those are two that, like, just because, like I said, like 9/11 being such a big thing, they were the two that always kind of stuck with me. So yeah, that'll be kind of my TV ones, in a weird way.
They've just got I was kind of digging around playing Minecraft in the background, and I've just got an iron pick, and the achievement I've just noticed is called "Isn't It Iron Pick?" There you go. That's a thing that they put in their game that they're proud of.
Yeah, I can see them here. It's games. Any games where there has been a world building moment where you're like,
I mean, overall, Skyrim just wins at world building. It's the one that does the series the absolute best. It's a series of games. Every one of them is built on the previous one. Like, and the moment in Skyrim that gets me is the Dwemer. The fact that they're not present, but the dwarven races aren't in the game, but every time you go underground, you find all this evidence of them, and it's literally an archaeological dig. You're going down and finding all this history that's in there, and it's pure fabrication, but it really, really feels like proper lost civilization stuff, and I'm learning more about the world. But without kind of between Skyrim and Mass Effect and all these ones, I honestly think fantasy and sci-fi, there's nearly a template for doing world building with them.
Mm-hmm.
Like, here's what you call elves in your story. You call them fae, or you call them,
Other kin or
Other kin.
the
So
other kind or
yes,
the whatever. Yeah.
you start doing this, and then you start giving them a history, and then you start writing down what the racism in this world is going to be, and it becomes I just from Tolkien onwards, world building in fantasy, and then in sci-fi is fantasy in space, is a bit kind of it's expected. So I'm gonna try and find one that was completely different. I wanted just a standalone game that does it super well. I'm gonna go with Grim Fandango.
Okay. Yeah. Okay.
And I don't think I even completed Grim Fandango. I played it years and years and years ago, and I keep every so often coming back and just looking at bits of it.
So you're
Uh,
perfect authority to talk on it. Go on.
yes, absolutely. And it's kind of built on first of all, it's film noir. It's
Yeah.
based on like Casablanca. The dude, the main dude, and it's even wearing the Casablanca white tux.
Yeah.
And it's all done in the Day of the Dead style, so it's all kind of got Spanish and Latin American influences and all these beautiful Art Deco kind of sets. And it's such a weird concept that you're functionally a travel agent in the afterlife, ferrying souls to the good place and the bad place. That it has a lot of work to do to get all these concepts across, and it does it so quickly and so entertainingly that I think it's some of the best world building I've ever seen.
Okay.
That like everything you do, there's nothing to lean on. It's not like fantasy when you see someone with pointy ears and you go, oh, they're the elf stand-in.
Yeah.
Every character you see, like someone pulls up in a hot rod and starts talking to you, and then he's your friend. And you're like, he could have been a bad guy. He could have been absolutely anything. There's nothing to lean on here. But I'm found it like one of the most entertaining worlds where clearly they just went, all right, starting from scratch, we're going to have to explain everything to the person, but let's always find something entertaining to do.
Yeah.
And like you're in the beautiful set pieces, going through drawers, finding items, and because it's an old school LucasArts adventure game style thing, the puzzles are absolutely mental as well. So it's with those ones, it's not like you can even have the comfort of a shooter where it's like, oh, if I point at something, I'll probably kill it. This is ones where you're like getting balloon animals and pulleys and lipstick and mirrors, and like everything you're getting has some meaning at some point, but there's nothing is apparent. But I really, really love the style of it. I think it is one where the style does a lot of the work in the world building.
Yeah, I think that's kind of the benefit to anything with that kind of 20s, 30s, or 40s aesthetic vibe to it, that it's so recognizable and so different. Yeah, like it's kind of, it's considered that whole kind of timeless, classy thing.
Yeah.
That its value is huge in that it will just straight away people go, oh, so we're in this end.
Yeah.
And then people will make a lot of connections themselves.
And you're like, am I a gumshoe or am I a suave detective? I'm a suave character? Okay, cool. And like everything you're doing, you're like the film noir side of it, as weirdly stylized as it is, does so much work. If you're like, okay, there's a mystery and I will solve it. That's why I'm exploring. That's why I'm going through people's the drawers in their desk and stuff, looking for things. And again, everything from the visuals to the music to the characters to the everything reinforces this weird world.
Yeah, I think. Oh, look, I know we've mentioned it before on the podcast, but I think that's why I like Brick so much, because again, it's almost trying to turn that on its head. Just by using the language and the type of story, people can automatically infer, oh, she's the the damsel in distress. He's the guy who
Quick
would
talking,
be. Yeah, it's like
shyster kind of guy.
Yeah, and people naturally make those connections. And a lot of the times I know people who are able to look at the likes of Brick and go, and they've done it as well to a degree with Grim Fandango, and they're able to go, oh, that's such and such and that's such and such, and they're able to make those connections. And I'm like, oh, so you've seen stuff like the Maltese Falcon, and they're like, no. They've never watched anything hardball.
They've never read Chandler, they've never done all this kind of stuff, and all the connections are there.
Exactly, yeah. Like most of them wouldn't even know who Raymond Chandler was, but it was the whole thing of it's so permeated through culture. And it's had such a long-lasting influence, despite it might not be 100% relevant nowadays. It's still it's soaked through. And
that kind of idea that, I'm not saying that fantasy and sci-fi are lazy, but I'm just saying there's a lot of work already done. I'm so surprised that nobody's done something similar with Grim Fandango, with that kind of setting. That they've used this kind of Day of the Dead. I can't believe they've never used the Day of the Dead afterlife in other things. It just seems like such a
Missed
I,
opportunity.
yeah, it seems like a missed opportunity. I know the game Grim Fandango didn't do especially well, but I'd love to see
The thing
more
is,
stuff like
it's a LucasArts game, so it does have a cult following to some degree.
yes, and the double is it Double Fine? Yes,
Well, Double Fine was Tim Schafer's kind of was the
they
studio he set up afterwards. They done Psychonauts and
I I really love everything those guys do. They pick a premise and they pick a setting and they pick a world and they exaggerate it in exactly the right way.
yeah,
They know how to exaggerate exactly the right elements of something to make it kind of to make this really beautiful world. And even Headlander is like this little it feels like a very small indie game where you're just running around, but you can pop your head off and jump onto other people's bodies.
yeah,
And it's done in a Barbarella 60s, 70s retro sci-fi style.
yes,
And it's so much fun. Like again, that's the kind of thing where while I'm exploring the world, I'm gonna go the wrong way 100 times. I'm gonna be solving puzzles and get stuck. But to be in a world that's so joyous, that's I can run around and be like, just this is the most fun. And like one of the buttons just dances. There was a button they weren't using on the controller.
yeah,
So when you click it, you dance. So every new body you get, you pop off your head and land on someone else. You always hit the button just to check what that person's dance is. And like the kind of 70s Afro or like kind of party guys will do like a little bit of Saturday Night Live, but there's some maintenance workers and they do kind of the Cure foot gazing, shoegazing kind of like goth dancing, and it's so fun. It's so nice.
that's. I mean, I think that's partially. I just think that's what the inside of Tim Schafer's head is like.
Yeah,
He
I
just
think
comes
so.
up with these crazy fucking ideas and runs with them, and they
I
work.
lo- Psychonauts is autobiographical. He's just trying to get the stuff from his head out.
Yeah, possibly, possibly.
Uh,
But like um the whole aspect of the visual aspect of Grim Fandango. One thing I really liked about it is like, yeah, it's kind of okay, they've done a remastered version recently and all the rest, but there was almost this. I wonder if it was one of those things that came about that somebody was just working on something or messing around with something at the time because they hadn't really done a 3D point
mm,
and click, and they were able to come with this model, and the guy was like, "That's kind of reminds me a bit of blah of the
yeah,
Day of the Dead," and they just went with it from there.
I suspect that's probably true because the skeletal Day of the Dead masks like they nearly look static because like they are toys. The Day of the Dead things are these little dolls with these
Yeah,
rictus smiles. So you get away with so little animation and so little like um you don't need moving faces and stuff like that to make it work.
yeah.
I'd say it's very much the same as Master Chef and Halo, having the helmet on, not talking and stuff like that. Like they
But
couldn't do emotions; they just wanted to get shooting right.
the thing about the Master Chief is that it was specifically meant to be like Gordon Freeman. It's the self insertion
Mm,
power fantasy. It's you like okay, they let the Master Chief speak, but they don't give him a face. They
yeah,
let Gordon Freeman. They give Gordon Freeman a face that you see at the very start, but like they don't let him talk. It allows people to put their own.
it's one of the many reasons why Halo is a lot like Twilight, with Bella Swan being the self insert. She's just
Obviously, obviously,
the empty character, Bella placeholder Swan, and like just overlay yourself on this, yeah.
yeah, yeah. I mean, they're not they're like two sides of the same coin:
Exactly.
Halo and Twilight.
I've been saying it for years, man.
the there is a the I did mention earlier quickly that there is the film Forward Unto Dawn, where they kind of explain about how the war first kicked off
Right.
and how initially the whole idea of the Covenant was secret.
Hmm.
And it's live action, and it's about a
Oh,
group of cadets going through their officer school, their version of like the USNC version of West Point,
hmm.
and they're it's actually it's quite well done. A Spartan shows up in it, and it is Master Chief, and it's not voiced by the same guy, unfortunately. for whatever reason. But it's when he shows up and like he fights kind of all the he fights an elite, an invisible elite with the sword, and he fights one of the brutes, and there's a whole kind of thing, and like that. That's kind of inverse world building. It's like there's this film that all this stuff would have to be explained normally, but because you know it's Halo related, you automatically know what all these things are.
Yeah.
So it's it's kind of a reverse of the world building. But just the kind of the two game ones that I wanted to mention. So you mentioned Skyrim, and obviously me and Skyrim. There is one specific part of it that I thought was quite well done. So there's a theory that surfaced a while back. So hang on, I have it here. This guy, he basically came up with a theory after maybe 4 years about one of the towns in Skyrim being secretly a Daedra worshipping cult.
Right.
So the town of Rorikstead, which is mentioned repeatedly throughout the thing, there's a song where they mention old Rorikstead and stuff like that, and there's the song about Ragnar the Red. There's the Book of Ragnar and all this type of thing.
But is that actually is that actually something in Skyrim, or is it just something that's mentioned?
No, it's a place you can go.
Okay.
So at the very start of the game, when you're in the cart and you're leaving, there's a guy in the cart called Lokir.
Right.
And Lokir mentions that he dislikes the Stormcloaks and the Imperials.
Yeah.
And he mentions he's from Rorikstead, and he wanted to leave Rorikstead, and you're kind of like, weird. So here's some. This is just at the article. So I did copy it out for this. It's like, here's some facts about the town of Rorikstead. There's a wizard in the town secretly trying to teach magic to a little girl. If you search his house, you discover he worships Daedra.
Right.
There's a song about Ragnar the Red which dates back a very long time. It's like several thousand years old. Referencing the town. The name Rorik means Red King or Bloody Warrior. In the Elder Scrolls Online, it's revealed that the small farming town dates all the way back to the First Era, yet other villages in Skyrim claim it's a new town that's just recently sprung up. Right? And there's another book, a shipping manifesto, reveals the town was present in the Second Era. So it might have been wiped out and rebuilt over time. It's the only proper farming town in the entire area, in the entire game. It's really fertile soil and lots of like really good harvests, but it's in the middle of nowhere, and it's kind of like in the barren plains. It should be just they should be just getting by.
Yeah.
And pretty much every single house has a soul gem, at least one soul gem inside it.
Interesting.
And soul gems are used to in Skyrim lore, in Elder Scrolls lore, soul gems are used to capture souls. It's mentioned through a couple of different sources that there's an incredibly high rate of women dying during childbirth, despite the fact that one of the wizards that lives in the town is a healing wizard. Okay?
Yeah, I'm on board.
And it says that Rorik fought in the Great War and had his life saved by a healer. So,
right.
There's a dialogue with the wizard where he vehemently denies there's any kind of secret in the town. The fertile mothers who are dying are actually being sacrificed for fertile land.
Right.
There is one woman. There's only three women in the entire town. One of them is too old.
This is stuff you can glean from in-game stuff.
Yeah, this is all from talking to people and everything else. But the theory is that the fertile mothers are being sacrificed for fertile land.
Right.
There's three women alive in the town. One of them is an old woman. This is too old to have children. And then there's two twin sisters who are too young.
Right.
If they stopped, basically it explains how it's the theory is that this is where you see the town rising and falling. If they stop doing sacrifices, it angers the Daedra. If they keep sacrificing them, they aren't able to grow their if they keep sacrificing, they're able to grow their population or give birth to future generations. Johnny's frozen on us. It's all gone horribly wrong. Right. So the whole thing with the Rorik place is that it's Rorikstead is that the idea is that it being a cult. If they stop sacrificing to the Daedra, then the Daedra get angry and they curse the area and it stops producing food and all the rest. If they sacrifice too much, they don't have enough people to continue the population.
Yep.
So it's just a very kind of interesting little theory that someone came up with, and I'm kind of like, yeah, that's. I could see that. I could get that, but that's what I love about it. I mean, it could be that someone has just patched that together out of nowhere, and the guys never intended that to be in the game, or it could very much be one of the aspects of it. Like it was always intended to be there. One of the other games that game series that I really liked for how it put in, for how it dealt with world building, is the Dark Souls series. But yeah, that was just one of the things I really liked about it. It's the way the descriptions are given through item descriptions. Your lore is pieced together through it. Now there is one guy who is basically a YouTuber, and his name is Vati Vidya, and we can make a link pop up in the video, or we can explain it, and we can post it on the page and that. But he's gone through every single piece of lore, every file he can find in the games for the Skyrim games. For Dark Souls. And he's pieced together the full storyline, or what he thinks is the full storyline, because there's no way to confirm it. And he does these he's got like this really soothing voice, and when he's reading them out, you're like, yeah, I believe that. It's just a real trustworthy voice. You have no reason to trust this man other than, yeah, his voice sounds nice. I believe him. But he's done a very good series on it. And it's all pieced together from item descriptions, little lines of dialogue, place descriptions, all this type of thing. That style of storytelling where everything is... it's embedded into the world, but we're never going to point anything out to you directly, and it's up to you to find it. I think that's great, because it means then that the people who just want to play the game and don't give a shit about the story can play the game and not give a shit about the story. The people who want to know more about the story can go look for it. And
it is very. I think it's a very rewarding way of ingesting a story is to have to seek it out.
Yeah. So yeah, those being my games. I think it's like, I think in part it leans into that whole thing of almost accidental or hand waved world building to a degree. But it's more kind of hand waved than that. Yeah, you can find this if you really care. We're not going to tell you. So yeah, I'd say we'll wrap it up there. We'll throw this up in the various forms, and it will get it so, as you said, we want people's feedback on this. We want to find out what people thought of it, because we can reinforce and refine this going forward. The Minecraft thing just seemed to be the thing for when we're talking about world building, because obviously there's even theories to a storyline behind Minecraft, not counting the Telltale story mode one that they built. There is actually meant to be a full story behind it, but
I've heard those.
I've never found it, so I don't know. But yeah, this is the podcast has to evolve because of me moving abroad. So this is just us trying something out. If it's shit, tell us it's shit. Cause,
yes, absolutely.
Yeah, we're not going to know otherwise. So we're just going to be like, yes, it's us talking, and that's fine. Great. But like it might work out well. We don't know. So we need you guys to let us know. And thanks for listening.
We're giving you homework this week.
Yes. Yeah. Well. Yeah. We do a little bit ourselves, but thanks for that.
Thanks everyone.
Take care.
Cheers.